wouldn't even dream that you should be getting. On the plane back from Bucharest, I was bored, and so we were able to watch TV. And so they had 12 showings of the series The Middle. Did you ever watch The Middle? About the Hex, Frankie and Mike and their kids and stuff like that. And so Mike, the father, he was given, he went to answer the door one day, and there was one of the guys he works for is there, and it's around Christmas time, with this little gift. And the guy says to him, "Mike, Merry Christmas." And Mike looks at him and says, "What?" And he says, "Merry Christmas, I got you a gift." And he says, "You got me a gift? Why did you give me a gift?" And he's not taking it. He says, "Mike, just take the gift." And so eventually Mike takes the gift, and the guy says, "Would you unwrap it?" He says, "What?" He says, "Would you just unwrap it?" And he says, "Okay." And he unwraps it, and it's a pair of sunglasses. And he says, "Sunglasses? Wow. You know, these are really something." The guy says, try them on. And Mike says, "I'm not going to try these on." You know, he says, "Thank you." You know, he shuts the door. And then, you know, it goes on a little bit, and he tells his wife, "I can't believe that Sam giving me these sunglasses. What in the world would he give me these sunglasses for? You know, I have to, you know, I know why he wants to do it. He wants me to give him a gift back. That's why he wants to do it." And he just goes through this whole thing, and he finds out that in the dialogue that he really likes these sunglasses because he never had a pair before. And his wife thinks he's hot looking in them, you know, whatever. And he rides a motorcycle, but he's still not able to receive that gift because it's too unexpected. There has to be strings tied to this whole thing. So it goes on that he eventually finds out how much those glasses cost, $42.50, and then he goes back to thank the guy one last time and knocks on his door, and he's wearing the sunglasses, and the guy says, "You like the sunglasses?" And he says, "Yeah, I do. I look good on my motorcycle with them." And then he says, "And by the way, here's the $42.50. Okay, interesting, isn't it? See, it's hard for us to receive. And so what I think Holy Week, a way to really get the most out of Holy Week is to understand in a very core way that what it's about is receiving what God has already done for you. See, there's nothing you need to do to gain God's love. Nothing. What we have to do is appropriate what Jesus Christ has done for us. That's what Holy Week's about. See, what our call here is to unblock the wondrous love and the unexpected mercy that God has given to us. It's so hard to believe that this could possibly happen for us. That's why we need a Holy Week. That's why we need to participate in a Holy Week, so that you can crack through and gain that insight, gain that deep core feeling that you are loved unconditionally, nothing you have to do. Now don't worry, because see, here's what we end up thinking. If I don't do everything that I'm supposed to do, then I'm going to be like a freeloader. I'm going to be getting something free. And you fear that you're not going to do the right stuff. It works totally the opposite. Appropriate the love God has for you, and it's going to be simple for you to do the right things. See, that's how it happens. Your doing of right things should never be a struggle. And it never has to be a struggle. And it won't be a struggle if you can break through and get this at some point in your life. And maybe it will be this Holy Week. You know, now, you know that one of the things I'm committed to is always preaching on the gospel. But you know, there is so much gold in today's gospel, isn't there? Whenever you think about that passion, there's so much in that it's hard to really figure out what should one preach about here. And so I was praying about that the last week or so, and a friend of mine called who also is preaching, and he said, "Regis, I discovered something in Luke's passion this year that I never saw before." And I said, "Tell me, what is it?" And he says, "Did you know that there's a juxtaposition that's intentional in that reading?" And he said, "I never knew that it was there." And I said, "Well, tell me what it is. I don't know if I know it was there." He said, "Well, there's a juxtaposition in 3 actions. 1 by Peter, and 3 by Peter, and 3 by Pilate." And I said, tell me more. He said, well, the one that you probably do know is that Peter denies Christ 3 times, right? You heard that. You heard that real clearly. 3 times. I do not know him. I do not know the man. I do not know the man. 3 times. And the juxtaposition is that Pilate proclaims the innocence of Jesus 3 times. Larry read it 3 times. Now, and in fact, the 3rd time, whenever we have the current version of Luke, because we were using a little bit of an older one, it actually says, and for the 3rd time, Pilate says, I find no fault with him. I proclaim him innocent for the 3rd time. Now, my friend then says, do you think that's significant? And you know, here's always been my bent with the writers of the gospel is they don't do anything by mistake or by accident. It's usually always intentional. And you know what makes it even more interesting with Luke is that this is an intentional, significant thing that he wants us to see. Follow this golden thread and you'll get to something really precious. And so, you know, Luke is the only one that does this juxtaposition. The other ones don't do it. So he's the only one that does it. And so whenever you allow yourself to look at that a little bit more deeply, I think here's the gold at the end. It's the treasure at the end of this rainbow. And here's what it is that Luke is the master of unexpectancy. Now, think about it for a minute. Whenever you hear that Peter is denying 3 times and Pilate is proclaiming 3 times, isn't that odd? Shouldn't they just be doing the opposite? Shouldn't Peter be the one who is proclaiming Jesus? And shouldn't Pilate be the one who's saying, I don't know the man, he's guilty? And it's juxtaposed. We get the unexpected. See, that's the thing in Luke. Luke says, you have a God that you serve who does unexpected things. Like, for example, I wasn't here the last 2 weeks, but I know that you heard the story of the prodigal son. Do you remember that one? You know, and so, now, who would have thought that a conniving prodigal would be able to be received back into a household without repentance? Who would have thought? See, we have a God of unexpectancy. Or just a couple weeks even before that, we had another gospel which had a shepherd. Who would have thought? A shepherd leaves 99 of the sheep and goes after the one. Who would have thought? That's not the expectation. Or, like, for example, who would have thought Jesus would acclaim and raise up a sinful tax collector as the symbol of righteousness for everyone around? Who would have thought? You see, we have a God of unexpectancy. God does what we least expect. And so, who would have thought that the Lord of glory, the King of kings, would have submitted himself to such a horrific, suffering experience for our sake? Who would have thought that a powerful God would love us and forgive us rather than to hold us to retribution? Who would have thought? That's not what kings do. That's not what presidents do. That's not what a lot of people do. Eye for an eye. I will rent buses and put immigrants into your sanctuary cities. Do you see? It's this kind of thing, retribution. It's not what our God is. See, our God is a God of the unexpected. So I think that's what the drama is that and it takes more than one sermon to do it, believe me. It takes a whole week to do it. To every one of those services to do it. In our little priest book, it says this. It says, if you experience Holy Week as an experience that goes on and on and on, it's supposed to. Everything you allow yourself to experience this Holy Week, and we have lots here at St. Brendan's. We have Tithes Day Wednesday. at 7 o'clock. We have Maundy Thursday at 7 o'clock. We have Good Friday at noon and at 7 o'clock. We have Easter Vigil on Saturday at 7 p.m. All of those are there not for you to learn, not for you to think about Jesus, all that will happen. They're there for you to experience things. And that's what we do at St. Brendan's. We give you an opportunity at all of those events to experience. You just don't hear about someone washed someone else's feet. We actually wash each other's hands. You don't just hear about a Seder meal at which the Eucharist was instituted. You actually eat the Seder meal in that corner of the church. We create experience because we know that you're not going to be able to appropriate and receive how good a gift God has for you, because we need to experientially allow these things to come into us one crack at a time. So my brothers and sisters, what I invite you this Holy Week to do is to get to your core this whole understanding that your God has wondrous love for you, that your God has unexpected mercy just waiting for you. Our job is to receive it. Our job is to unblock it. Let's do that this Holy Week.